All right, so here we are for part 6. Cauldron pretty much complete. A couple of little things left to do with it, like hiding like the speed controller and getting the wires run through the cauldron out to where they're gonna ultimately get plugged in. But what I'm gonna be focusing on now is getting the skeleton to stay in place. So every time I go to set it up, it's always gonna be in the same spot because so the bar that you see running up that main support, the hook, and the center of the motor all need to be in line with one another. A little off is okay. It does cause things to get it puts a little more strain on the motor, I find. Don't know enough about physics or anything like that to know how to correct it, but just trial and error, I found that if everything's in line here, it works a lot smoother. So we're gonna go ahead and make sure that when we set the skeleton up, every time it's always gonna be in the same spot. And the way that we're gonna go about doing this is I have this metal rod, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this metal rod, I'm gonna drill a hole into the base, right? So this will sit into the base, and then I'm just gonna bend this metal rod right at about here at the bottom by the ankle here. Sorry, it's hard to film and point at the same time, but right where my fingers, like I'm tapping right here, I'm gonna put a bend so that way it'll end up going and following the bone structure here, and that way I'll be able to hold this down with a pipe clamp, and then I'm going to go over it with a little bit of Bondo just to make sure that it's, number one, it hides the pipe clamp, but then it helps make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. And then that way I'll always have a footing for when I go to set it up. It'll just go in the same spot, and it shouldn't hopefully move. It should just stay in the same position every year when I go to set it up. So that's what I'm going to start on now. All right, so what I'm going to begin by doing is heating this up, getting it glowing hot, and I'm just going to quickly bend it. You don't have to heat this. You could just, like I could just probably, actually, for safety purposes, just demonstrate. That's probably all I need to do. I'm going to go check this out now against the skeleton and see how that fits. All right, so back over by the skeleton. Here's our metal rod that's going to go down pretty close. It's a little, I gotta remember, it's going to have to drill, I'm going to have to drill in, so it is going to have to go down a smidge. So I think I'm going to leave it for right now. I'm going to start with this. If I have to, I'll bend it further, but I'm afraid if I bend it too much when I go to drill the hole, because I mean this is going to sit, I don't know, we'll probably have it sit in probably about that far into the plywood and the 2x4, maybe a little bit further. I don't plan on having it bottoming out in it or going through the 2x4. So it's just, like I said, it's just going to help hold the skeleton legs in place and make sure that it doesn't move. So we've got the first one. I'm going to now work on leg number 2. All right, back at the vise, metal rod number 2 that we're going to bend. Again, I'm not going to heat this. I'm just going to muscle it out. This part is a little too long, but this is what's going to go up the leg of the skeleton. So picture the ankle is going to go here, and this will go up. I can't remember the human anatomy part, but it goes up the leg. You get the idea. Okay, back over at the other leg. Go ahead and check this. And again, it's a little on the high side, but I'm going to have to drill a hole to sink this in. So in the end, this is going to be good. But we're going to have to cut this off probably about here. And then I'll probably put 2 pipe clamps around it. So I'm going to get this cut off, and then we're going to get these both attached with the pipe clamps, and then drill our holes. Okay, so I got the one leg attached to the metal rod that's now in the hole that I drilled there. I know it's a little dirty and hard to see, but I have one hole drilled there. I did make the hole a little bit bigger, just that way I would have a little bit of room for play, just in case I needed to make any little adjustments. I can always drill a second hole right next to it if I need to. That's closer to the diameter of the metal rod if I find that this ends up being a problem. But one thing I did run into on this one is that when I try to set this up here, when I try to set this up here, it's like the rock's just like a little too big and just wants to keep popping out there. And I don't have a ton of material to really work with to push this down far enough, but I might try and bend this a little more so that way maybe I don't have, because I wonder if I just bend it down more, that would get me closer to the hole then, if it would sit better. If not, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my hot wire tool, which is this right here, and I'll just use that to just trim off the top of that rock. So either way it's going to get set up, but that's where we're at right now. Alright, so I went ahead and bent it just a little bit more, and I also moved the bar a little bit further down towards the ankle, and that seemed to work, but it was still just a smidge too high, so I did trim this foam rock about an inch or so I trimmed off, but that'll just end up sitting there like that. But now we've got the hook. Yeah, we got the hook, the rod, and the motor all in alignment. At this point, I think the next step is going to be just starting to hide that hardware. These pipe clamps, for example. Definitely I'm going to be hiding these. I'm not sure still if I'm going to go the Bondo route or if I'm just going to corpse over it, because if I corpse over it, you're not going to see it. But so I'm not sure if I'm going to Bondo this or if I'm just going to corpse over it. I think I might just corpse over it. Whatever I end up doing, I am going to have to trim off all this extra material just so that way it's not sticking out. I don't want to wrap that all around there. So I'll just cut that off close to where the screw is. But yeah, when I go over this and corpse it, I feel like that's going to hide it, but I also feel like putting the Bondo around this metal rod and over this hardware here will just kind of help make sure that nothing gets loose over the time. The arm is also going to have to get secured. I was thinking about using pipe clamps, but because the pipe clamps are just so big, I think instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to use floral wire, and I'll go around same kind of spot, just like where this Velcro is here. So I'll take floral wire and go around the bone and this metal rod. That'll help make sure that it'll be attached to this, and then I'll still go over this with Bondo just to help keep everything nice and tight, and also just kind of help hide the armature by going over this with the Bondo and then also corpsing it on top of that. You're not even going to see that. So while the skeleton looks great, you know, just as it is, I still want to corpse it, you know, something, you know, to this extent, or, you know, something around those lines. But this is why you have to have a clean garage, so you don't knock stuff over while you're filming. So one thing that I do whenever I'm dealing with floral wire, I usually try to twist it. So I'll stick it in a drill. I'll stick this end here in a drill, put a bolt through here, and then I'll just keep twisting until I get what you see right here. The reason why I do that is just because I feel like it's a little bit sturdier, a little bit stronger than just running it by itself. But also it helps me by making this little loop, so that way I have something to kind of start by attaching it with. Okay. So that should hold there. I'm just going to keep repeating that same step in these other spots. So what I think I'm going to do over here, I think I'm going to drill a hole through, just because if I drill a hole through there, that'll help me make a better, tighter fit. Plus I'll be able to hide it more here, whereas if I go down here, yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to drill a hole right there. So now with that hole drilled, feed my wire through. Okay, let's see if I can come back through the other way. Perfect. Get that out of our way. Okay. I'm gonna just get right over here. I think I'm gonna drill another hole here too. Yes, I probably could have did this with zip ties. I've used zip ties before for a similar application. I don't have any zip ties, so this is what I had, so this is what we went with. I've used floral wire in similar applications. Both zip ties and floral wire have held up well in the elements, so if you got either one hanging around, go for it. So I think what I am going to do, just because it worked out so well on the last two that I did, I'm going to take the wire off of this one. I'm going to drill a hole through that, do the same thing here. Alright, everything is now attached. So you can see where I've gone around with the floral wire that's been wrapped around itself. And that has replaced all the spots where I originally had the Velcro holding the bone on. Alright, so legs ready for bondo. I'm going to trim off these extra bits of the pipe clamp here, just so that way those aren't sticking out. Then I'll get some bondo wrapped around there. I've made the decision. I am not going to bondo over this. I'm just going to leave it alone for right now. I am going to bondo over the arm, though, as I've been talking about doing. So before I can bond it, though, I do need to rough this up a little bit with some sandpaper. So that's going to be the first order of business. And then we'll mix up the bondo, and we'll come back and apply it. All right, let's go mix up some bondo. Okay, got my bondo. We're just going to start applying this onto our skeleton. All right, what I have left here is going to get put on the legs, but having Bondo all over my hands is going to make that a little tricky for me to try and move the camera, but we're going to see what I can do. Shoot. Looks like we might be out of time already. See if I can smear something on here. No, I think we're out of juice. That sucks. That's a lot of Bondo wasted. So first batch of Bondo dried before I could apply it to the legs. So I'm gonna start mixing up another batch. All right, I gotta work real quick here. So it's not gonna be pretty, but it's gonna get applied. Film over here, I got to move super quick before this Bondo starts to cure. All right, so I'm going to keep working on the staff, and all I'm going to be doing here is just using a heat gun, heating up the PVC, putting some twists and bends into the pipe, and then cooling it down with a rag, and just repeating that same process. Very easy to do. Be careful, the PVC does get really, really hot, but this is a very easy way to make branches, sticks, staffs, out of just PVC pipe. And as far as the wood grain texture, that'll come after I'm done with this. I will hit this then with a Dremel tool. So, all right, that's what I'm gonna be working on next. I don't know how the camera's picking that up. You can see it's very easy to twist and bend the PVC once it gets heated up. And then after you've got it heated, I've seen some people use a spray bottle. I used to use a spray bottle, but now I just get a soaked rag and I just kind of lay it over that. And that cold rag is enough to help set that plastic. You can see, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but it is steaming a little bit there. But I just take this soaking wet rag. I shouldn't say soaking wet, it's heavy, it's very damp. But you can see that once that PVC cools down, it'll hold that shape. So I wanted the staff that I'm making, or recreating, I should say, I want it to be a little bit longer than the one that I've been using as my mock-up one. Didn't try to keep the exact same bends. I mean, somewhat similar, but I wouldn't say it's at all identical. But I didn't want to have a straight looking pipe. This has got some nice gnarly bends and curves, and it looks more organic, you know. And then by the time I finish putting the grooves on into the PVC, and then when we paint it, stain it, this is going to look, I think, a lot better than than this. Not to say that I was disappointed with this, but you can see it's cheap plastic. It's just barely held together. This one though, I think is going to be just fine. I think in the next video I'll include me finishing up this staff, putting all the detailing, getting the hooks, that way we can hang it on our skeleton. Just doing one last scan of our skeleton. You can see our bondo is just about cured. Still a little tacky, but we will let the bondo cure, get the staff done, and keep working on trying to figure out how I can get the head to move, if at all possible. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. So thank you everybody for watching part 6. Please stay tuned for part 7. We are getting much closer to hitting this thing done. I cannot wait to throw some paint on this. It's going to be night and day difference. And then once that skeleton gets a little bit of corpsing on it, it's just, if you're excited about this now, just wait till you see when it's all going to be completed. But thank you for watching. I do appreciate everybody. Have a good one.